Welcome to a deep dive into the fascinating world of emotional intelligence.
Ooh, I like that.
Today, we're going to be exploring some really key insights from Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence.
A classic.
And our mission today is to kind of unpack not just what emotional intelligence is, but why it matters so much to you.
Yeah. Why should we care?
Exactly. And how you can actually use it to make your life better.
Love it.
So I'm really excited about this one.
Me too.
So, Goleman really starts off by talking about this idea of having two minds, the rational mind and the emotional mind.
Oh, yeah, that's right at the beginning of the book.
And I thought that was a really fascinating way to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the rational mind is the one that, is thinking things through.
Like weighing the pros and cons.
Exactly. It's making those, deliberate choices.
This is the logical one.
Yeah. Like when you're trying to decide, should I have that extra piece of cake or not?
Right. Or, should I hit the snooze button or should I get up and go for a run?
Exactly.
And then there's the emotional mind.
Which is often the one that wins.
Oh, absolutely. The one that, kind of takes over sometimes.
It's all about feelings and those gut reactions.
Yeah. And I think we've all had those moments where, we're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Or said that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the emotional mind just kind of took over.
Yeah, and Goleman, he illustrates this beautifully with that story of the New York City bus driver.
Oh, I love that story.
He's dealing with all these cranky commuters all day long.
Yeah, I can't imagine being a bus driver in New York City.
But somehow he manages to turn that whole bus around just with his own positive energy.
It's incredible, right? Like he's picking up on everybody's bad vibes, and then he's just like shifting the whole mood.
He's like an emotional alchemist.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, Goleman talks about these examples of when the emotional mind kind of leads to these really unintelligent behaviors.
Oh, yeah, like the kid who trashes his classroom because someone called him a baby.
I mean, to talk about an overreaction.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like what?
It's like a complete amygdala hijack.
Yeah, and that's where the amygdala comes in, right? It's that little part of our brain.
It's like our alarm system.
Exactly. Fight, flight, or freeze when we sense danger.
Yeah, but sometimes it just like overreacts to things that aren't really that dangerous.
Big time.
And that's when we get those, amygdala hijackings that Goleman talks about.
And sometimes those hijackings can have some pretty serious consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, like in the case of Richard Robles, who ends up, getting a life sentence because of an emotional outburst.
That's intense.
It really is.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of just how powerful our emotions can be.
And, it's like they can completely override our rational thinking sometimes.
It's like this express lane to action bypassing all logic.
Which might have been useful, back in the day when we were like running from saber-toothed tigers.
Yeah, back in the caveman days.
Exactly. But not so much in the modern world.
Not so helpful.
So the question then becomes like, how do we get a handle on this emotional roller coaster?
Yeah, like how do we not let our emotions run the show?
And that's where Goleman's 5 components of emotional intelligence come in.
Oh, yeah. Those are key.
He lays out this framework of self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills.
It's like a roadmap for emotional intelligence.
And he argues that mastering these can really be game changers in how we navigate our lives.
Both personally and professionally.
Exactly. And let's start with self-awareness because, it sounds so simple.
It does, but it's not always easy.
And Goleman talks about how some people are actually what he calls alexithymics.
What's that?
They have trouble even labeling their own feelings.
Wow. So it's like they're walking around with no idea what's going on inside.
Exactly. And can you imagine like how difficult that would be?
To not even know how you're feeling?
Yeah, like how you even begin to manage your emotions if you don't even know what they are.
It's like trying to drive a car without a steering wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So self-awareness is like the foundation
That's the first step.
for everything else. And then that leads us to self-regulation.
Which is all about managing those impulses when those tricky emotions show up.
Right. So when you're feeling angry or anxious or like you're spiraling into worry.
Yeah, those fun times.
Exactly. How do you manage that?
And Goleman doesn't just say calm down.
No, he actually dives into the research.
He gives us some practical strategies.
Like what?
Well, like taking a time out when anger flares up,
That's a good one.
or even scheduling a specific worry time so those thoughts don't take over your whole day.
I have actually heard that one before, and I think it's a really interesting idea.
Like giving those worries a designated space so they don't spill out everywhere.
Exactly. And I think, the bigger picture here is that we actually have more power over our emotional climate than we realize.
Way more.
And we can learn to respond to life's challenges in healthier ways.
It's about building that emotional resilience.
And, Goleman also talks about these people that he calls repressors.
Repressors.
Yeah, and these are the people who always seem calm and collected on the outside.
Like they have it all together?
Exactly. But he suggests that, their outward calm might actually be masking some inner turmoil.
Oh, interesting. So it's like they're just bottling everything up.
And it makes you wonder, is that really healthy?
Yeah, I mean, could acknowledging those difficult emotions actually be better for us in the long run?
It's a good question. And then, shifting gears a little bit.
To a more positive note.
Yes, Goleman talks about the power of optimism.
Oh, I love this part.
And he says it's not just about, looking at the bright side. It can actually impact our achievements and our overall happiness.
Yeah, it's not just wishful thinking.
Exactly.
It's a real force.
So think about, a goal that you're working towards right now.
Okay, got it.
Do you have both the will, the desire and motivation, and the way, like a clear path or strategy to achieve it?
That's a good question.
And that's the core of Snyder's research on hope.
Oh, yeah. Snyder's work is fascinating.
And it's so much more powerful than just positive thinking.
It's about having a plan.
Exactly. And that, Seligman's research found that optimism can actually be a better predictor of success than talent alone.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
Right. It makes you think about, what are the stories we tell ourselves about what we're capable of?
And how those stories can actually shape our reality.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that research shows that optimism can actually help us bounce back from setbacks.
So it's like having an inner cheerleader.
Who's always rooting for you.
Exactly, and won't let you give up on your dreams.
So speaking of dreams, let's talk about something that I think a lot of us crave, that flow state.
Oh yeah, that feeling of being completely absorbed in what you're doing.
Where you almost lose track of time.
Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow is so fascinating.
It really is.
He found that when we're in that state of intense focus, our brain actually quiets down.
It's like all the mental chatter fades away.
And you become one with the task at hand.
It reminds me of those times when I get so lost in writing that I completely lose track of time.
Oh yeah, I get that with music.
It's amazing, right?
And Csikszentmihalyi suggests that we can actually unlock that flow state by finding activities that offer enjoyable challenges.
So it's not just about doing things that are easy.
No, it's about finding that sweet spot.
Where you're challenged, but not overwhelmed.
And it's about pursuing your passions.
Finding work that lights you up.
Exactly. And that brings us to the realm of empathy and relationships.
Where things get really personal.
Because, let's face it, relationships are at the heart of human experience.
And empathy, as Goleman describes it, is the ability to understand and respond to other people's emotions.
And it's not just a warm and fuzzy feeling.
No, it's a crucial skill.
And there's actually a biological basis for it.
He even talks about these mirror neurons in the brain that seem to be involved in our capacity for empathy.
So it's like we're wired for connection.
Exactly. And Goleman makes this really interesting connection between empathy and how we interact with others.
Like how we navigate those social situations.
And he uses examples to illustrate how people who are more empathetic seem to have an easier time.
Yeah, they build stronger relationships.
It's like they have this secret weapon.
And he even compares the social strategies of popular versus unpopular kids.
Which I thought was really fascinating.
And it turns out that the popular kids are often more in tune with the emotional needs of those around them.
Like they're better at reading those social cues.
And responding in ways that build connection.
So it's not just about being nice.
No, it's about being emotionally intelligent.
And it makes you realize that emotional intelligence isn't just about us individually.
It impacts every relationship we have.
And as we'll see in the next part, the foundation for emotional intelligence is often laid in childhood.
Oh yeah, those early experiences are crucial.
So stay tuned for more on that.
I can't wait.
It's amazing to think how much those early experiences can really shape a person's emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder how much of it is like nature versus nurture.
Right. Like, are we born with a certain level of emotional intelligence, or is it all about how we're raised?
Well, Goleman actually presents evidence for both sides.
Oh, interesting.
He talks about how our genes definitely play a role.
So, like, some people might just be naturally more emotionally in tune.
Right, but he also emphasizes that our environment, especially in those early years, has a huge impact on how we develop emotionally.
So, like, our parents or caregivers, the whole emotional atmosphere we grew up in.
Exactly, and he dives into research on different parenting styles and how those can have a lasting impact.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's take authoritarian parents, for example.
Yeah, the ones who are super strict.
Yeah, they're all about rules and obedience. Not a lot of warmth or explanation.
Like my way or the highway kind of thing.
Pretty much. And do you think that kind of environment helps kids learn to understand and manage their emotions?
I'm going to guess no.
You're right. It's more likely to teach them to suppress their emotions.
To just bottle everything up.
Exactly. So those kids might be well behaved on the surface.
But they could struggle with emotional intelligence later on.
Yeah, they might have trouble understanding their own feelings and being empathetic towards others.
So what about the opposite end of the spectrum? Those permissive parents?
The ones who are super chill let their kids do whatever they want.
Yeah, like no rules, no boundaries.
While that might sound fun as a kid, it doesn't necessarily set them up for emotional intelligence success either.
Also.
Well, those kids might grow up lacking self-control, having trouble regulating their emotions.
And what about in relationships?
Yeah, if you're used to getting your way all the time, it might be harder to consider the needs of others.
So it seems like finding that sweet spot, that balance between strictness and leniency, is
You
key.
got it. That's where authoritative parenting comes in.
I've heard that term before.
Goleman suggests this style is like the gold standard for fostering emotional intelligence.
Tell me more.
Okay, so these parents are warm and supportive.
So they're not like the authoritarian parents who are all about control.
Exactly. But they also have clear boundaries and expectations.
So there's still structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they talk to their kids, they involve them in decisions,
They treat them with respect.
and that helps them develop that sense of responsibility.
So it's like they're giving their kids the tools to succeed, not just academically, but emotionally and in their relationships too.
That's the goal, and kids raised with this style tend to be more self-aware, better at managing their emotions, and more empathetic.
They sound like well-rounded individuals.
Yeah, they're also more likely to be motivated and have those all-important social skills.
And then there are the uninvolved parents.
The ones who, well, aren't very
Like,
involved.
which sadly can be the most damaging style.
Those kids often lack the emotional support and guidance they need to thrive.
It's a reminder of just how crucial parents are in shaping their children's emotional well-being.
It's a big responsibility.
It is,
Yes.
but it's reassuring to know that no parent needs to be perfect.
Absolutely. Just creating that warm, supportive environment can make a world of difference.
So we've talked about parenting styles, but what about education?
Oh, yeah. Can we actually teach emotional intelligence in schools?
I mean, I hope so. Imagine a world where understanding and managing emotions is as important as learning math or history.
Well, Goleman is a big proponent of what he calls emotional literacy in education.
What does that look like in practice?
He points to these innovative programs like self-science and resolving conflict creatively.
Those names are intriguing.
They're already showing positive impacts on kids' behavior, academic performance, and overall well-being.
So like real, tangible results.
Exactly.
Can you give me an example of what these programs actually involve?
Sure, take self-science, for instance.
Okay.
It focuses on teaching kids about their own emotions and how to recognize them in others.
So it's about building that self-awareness we talked about earlier.
Exactly. They do engaging activities, they have discussions.
It's like giving them a practical toolkit for navigating those emotional ups and downs of life.
Exactly. And then there's resolving conflict creatively.
Which sounds super important, especially these days.
It equips kids with the skills to handle conflict constructively.
So instead of, yelling or getting into fights,
Right? They learn techniques for communication, negotiation, problem solving.
imagine if every kid had these tools.
Disagreements could become opportunities for growth rather than sources of stress.
That's a powerful idea.
Yeah.
Do we have any evidence that these programs actually work?
The research is actually really encouraging.
That's great to hear.
Kids participating in these programs show lower levels of aggression and bullying.
That's huge.
They also have better academic performance, and they're more likely to behave in pro-social ways.
So it's like a win-win for everyone.
Exactly. It's proof that we can teach emotional intelligence, and the benefits are far-reaching.
It's exciting to think about. Goleman seems to envision a future where emotional literacy is just woven into the fabric of our schools.
He believes that raising emotionally intelligent, socially responsible kids will benefit all of society.
It makes sense. I mean, the more we understand and manage our own emotions, the better equipped we are to create a more peaceful and compassionate world.
Absolutely. And while we've been focusing on the benefits of high emotional intelligence, Goleman also dedicates a portion of his book to the potential downsides of low emotional intelligence.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense that if high emotional intelligence is linked to all these positive things, then low emotional intelligence could have some negative consequences.
Right, and he suggests that it can contribute to a range of issues, from mental health challenges like depression and anxiety to relationship problems and even criminal behavior.
That's pretty serious.
It's a sobering reminder that our emotions, if left unchecked, can have a profound impact on our lives and the lives of those around us.
So where do we start unpacking this idea of low emotional intelligence and its potential consequences.
Well, let's start with relationships.
Okay.
We've already talked about how crucial those early childhood experiences are, but emotional intelligence also plays a huge role in our adult relationships.
Romantic partnerships,
Yeah.
friendships, family dynamics.
All of it. And think about it. Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to navigate relationships with more ease and grace than others?
Oh, absolutely. It's like they have this magic touch.
Well, Goleman argues that high emotional intelligence can actually be the secret ingredient to healthy, fulfilling relationships.
So what's the difference maker?
People with high emotional intelligence are more attuned to their own emotions and the emotions of their partners.
They're more in tune with those emotional undercurrents.
Exactly. They communicate better, they listen more empathetically, and they're much more adept at resolving conflicts constructively.
So it's not just about avoiding arguments altogether.
No,
Right.
it's about having the skills to work through them in a way that strengthens the relationship.
Because let's face it, conflict is inevitable in any relationship.
It's how we handle it that matters.
And Goleman actually uses this really interesting term, flooding,
Flooding.
to describe that feeling of being overwhelmed by negative emotions during a conflict.
Oh, yeah, it's like your fight or flight response kicks in and rational thinking goes out the window.
We've all been there.
And couples with high emotional intelligence are better equipped to handle that flooding.
So they're able to kind of step back,
Yeah.
take a breath, and not let those emotions completely take over.
Exactly. They recognize what's happening. They know how to take a break to calm down, regulate their emotions, and then return to the conversation ready to find a solution.
So it's like emotional intelligence provides a kind of buffer that helps protect the relationship from those intense emotional moments.
It's like a relationship superpower.
I like that.
It allows us to build stronger bonds, communicate more effectively, and weather those inevitable storms with more resilience.
And it's fascinating to consider how emotional intelligence, or the lack of it, can shape not just individual experiences, but the dynamics of entire relationships.
And it doesn't stop there. Goleman also explores the link between low emotional intelligence and mental health issues like depression and anxiety.
That makes sense to me. If you struggle to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, it seems like it would be much harder to cope with difficult situations and maintain a sense of well-being.
Right, those bottled up emotions, especially negative ones like sadness, fear, and anger, can build up over time and potentially contribute to mental health challenges.
And imagine dealing with stress and setbacks when you don't have those emotional regulation tools at your disposal.
It's like trying to navigate a maze in the dark.
And Goleman also touches on the link between low emotional intelligence and physical health.
Yeah, he highlights this growing body of research that shows a strong connection between our emotions and our physical well-being.
So it's not just in our heads. Our emotions can actually affect our bodies.
Exactly. For example, chronic stress, which is often tied to how we manage our emotions, can weaken the immune system, increase the risk of heart disease, and contribute to other health problems.
That's a powerful reminder that taking care of our emotional well-being is just as important as taking care of our physical health.
Couldn't agree more. Now, this next topic might be a bit sensitive, but Goleman also discusses the connection between low emotional intelligence and criminal behavior.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think it's important to talk about.
It's definitely a complex issue with many contributing factors.
Of course.
However, Goleman presents research suggesting that people who commit violent crimes often exhibit low levels of empathy and impulse control.
So they might struggle to understand or care about the feelings of others.
And they're more likely to act without considering the consequences.
It's like their emotional brakes aren't working properly.
That's a good analogy. Of course, it's important to remember that low emotional intelligence isn't the sole cause of criminal behavior.
Right. There are so many other factors at play.
Poverty, social environment, substance abuse, all of these things contribute.
But it's definitely a factor worth considering, especially when thinking about prevention and intervention strategies.
And it seems like Goleman is making a larger point here about the impact of emotional intelligence or the lack of it on society as a whole.
It's not just about individual happiness and success. It's about creating a safer and more compassionate world for everyone.
You got it. It raises questions about how we can create a society that is more emotionally literate and compassionate.
And the good news is that Goleman doesn't leave us hanging. He provides practical advice and strategies for boosting our emotional intelligence, regardless of where we're starting from.
It's like he's giving us a toolkit for emotional growth.
And that's encouraging. It's not like we're stuck with whatever level of emotional intelligence we have right now. We can actively work on developing these skills.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence isn't a fixed trait. It's a set of skills that we can cultivate and refine throughout our lives.
So it's an ongoing journey.
A journey of self-discovery and growth.
And where do we begin this journey of enhancing our emotional intelligence?
Well, Goleman emphasizes self-awareness as the foundation for everything else.
It's like the first step on the path.
So maybe we should start by exploring some practical tips for becoming more aware of our own emotions. What do you think?
You know, it's interesting. As we've been talking about all these different aspects of emotional intelligence, it really does feel like this superpower
It kind of is, isn't
that
it?
we could all tap into if we just, put in the effort.
And the great thing is it's not like, some exclusive club.
Right. Anyone can cultivate these skills.
That's what I love about Goleman's work. It's like he gives us this really practical guide for living a better life.
It's not just theory.
No, it's like actionable steps we can take.
To understand our emotions, better manage our reactions, and connect with people on a deeper level.
And create a more compassionate world around us.
And I think that's so important, especially in today's world.
Oh, absolutely. Things are moving so fast. Everything's changing
It
constantly.
can feel really overwhelming.
Like we're constantly being bombarded with information.
And in this kind of environment, having strong emotional intelligence is essential
It's like having an anchor in the chaos.
to help us navigate the complexity, manage stress, make good decisions, build those resilient relationships that we all need.
And Goleman also talks about how crucial emotional intelligence is for effective leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You can't really lead effectively if you're not in tune with yourself and the people you're leading.
Right, the old model of like the top-down authoritarian leader.
Command and control.
Yeah, that's fading fast.
Because it just doesn't work anymore.
Today, the most effective leaders are the ones who can inspire and motivate their teams, foster collaboration, connect with people on an emotional level.
So it's about leading with empathy and understanding, not just authority.
And research actually shows that this style of leadership leads to greater job satisfaction, productivity, and innovation.
Because people feel valued and respected.
Exactly, and it's not just in the workplace.
Right. Think about how divided things feel in the world right now.
It's like we're all talking, but no one's really listening.
And there's so much anger and misunderstanding.
Emotional intelligence can help us bridge those divides,
So by allowing us to have those difficult conversations with more empathy and respect,
even if we disagree,
we can still acknowledge the other person's perspective.
and try to see things from their point of view.
And that's what Goleman means when he talks about creating a more emotionally literate society.
It starts with teaching emotional intelligence from a young age, giving kids the skills to understand and manage their own emotions, empathize with others, build healthy relationships.
It's a beautiful vision.
Kind of feels utopian.
That it feels possible.
I think so too. It starts with recognizing that emotional intelligence is just as important as academic intelligence.
We need to nurture these skills in ourselves and in future generations.
If we want to create a more compassionate, just, and peaceful world,
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it back to you, the listener.
what insights have resonated with you the most?
What are you curious about?
What are some things you can do starting today to enhance your own emotional intelligence?
Think about your relationships, your work, your personal growth.
How can you apply these principles to create positive change in your life?
Remember, emotional intelligence is a journey, not a destination.
It's an ongoing process of self-discovery and growth.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep unlocking the power of your own emotional intelligence.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope it's inspired you to take a closer look at the fascinating world of emotions and their impact on your life.